As you may be aware, Penn State lost to Ohio State on Saturday. The fallout of that continues. I'm Thomas Frankin. This is Nate Bauer, senior editor of Blue White Illustrated. We're here just after James Franklin's press conference. He addressed basically the offense was 90% of the conversation about this game, and it all came to him down to one number, which you have heard repeatedly: 0 of 15 on their first 15 third downs, one final conversion with 50 seconds roughly left in the game. James Franklin talked about that repeatedly. That's what he came back to, Nate. So I guess where do you go from there with that assessment of what happened and how it had such I don't want to say an outsize because it was the exact impact on the game. So what are your takeaways from today in that conversation?
Yeah, they first of all, it just sounds so somber, right? It's going to be okay for everyone.
I always rely on you to brighten the mood, right? Like I came in like this was a press conference about like updating you live on terrible things.
Yeah, we've got 3 cats in a tree. No, look, it's certainly they were not able to accomplish what they wanted in the game as a whole. And I think that Franklin's point today that resonated with me was, look, you're fired up after the game, and you immediately go to, well, the run-pass balance wasn't good. We didn't call the right plays at the right times, blah, et cetera, et cetera. And that is how he reacted after the game. But okay, you decompress, you go back and you study the film, you see exactly how things played out, and I think he kind of alluded to it during the game. It's a little bit like the Iowa game, just reversed, right? In the sense of Penn State didn't ever get into an opportunity where it could be itself. It could never fully function and blossom and spread its wings and do all of the things that you expect to see based on who they have been previously this year. And so because of the third down inconsistency and the inability truly to stay on the field, Penn State just never had that opportunity, and it really kind of skewed and changed his perception after the fact to say, well, there would have been more carries for Singleton. There would have been more carries for Kaytron Allen had they been on the field more. They just weren't on the field.
Nate, this is the thing that I thought in this conversation today. We've talked about personality. What is the identity of this team? And people have asked me that. We're going to have that conversation later on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel on the Wednesday morning show. Is third down conversion a personality? Because this is the conversation James Franklin, I think, admitted today. They got away from what they were, which is short yardage. They acknowledged that Ohio State has good defensive tackles, and then they avoided the middle of the field in third down, third and short, pretty much the whole game. Yep. So can your personality truly be a stat instead of like, we're a run first team, we're a pass first team? He wants to be a balanced team, but I struggle with that part of this conversation, I guess.
I mean, certainly I think it can be look, they were 20th in the country in third down percentage going into that game. It dropped precipitous. I mean, obviously, when you go 0 for, like, that's what's going to happen. But they very much felt comfort or strength, I should say, at the notion that between first and second down, they would always put themselves in a position to have a third and manageable situation, right? And he even said this today. If not third and manageable, then fourth and manageable. They want to be what you saw from the Eagles on Sunday night, right? That like they're going to go for it on their side of the field when it's 4th and 1 because they have the plays in the playbook to go for it and succeed and convert on those plays. So they have had that, and they did. Like, this is the thing that is very, I don't know about fascinating to me, but it is not as though they were consistently behind the sticks on Saturday.
Their third downs were varied. They had third and short, they had third and medium, they had third and long. And the commonality was they didn't convert any of them.
They for whatever reason, right? And I mean,
by the way, if you want the reasons, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, T. Frank's Film Room, we broke down third down specifically. It's 30 minutes of this.
And it's so good, T. Frank. You did such a good job of breaking down. No, because it's, again, it goes back to what I said after the game. It's so easy in those situations to just point the finger at one person or one element of the game, but it's just not. The offensive line had failures there. Drew Aller had failures there. The running backs, right?
Yep.
Across the play calling, all of it contributed to that. And so overall, when you come away from that game, That's the failure.
Right.
Because you didn't really even have an opportunity to fail at other things.
Right.
You just didn't give yourself that chance.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Penn State is kicking itself the most over today.
And I think that's the conversation, people have pointed at us and said, you need to ask better questions that are more critical of some of these narratives from James Franklin, that third down is our identity and like doing hard things well. Well, that is hard to sustain against better teams. And as James Franklin has given credit to Ohio State, one of the best defenses in the country. So I guess there's all of that wrapped up, and we're not going to get into all of the thicket of there today. We want to kind of condense this into kind of a soup version of what you could get over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Great time to sign up. You want to say something, though?
I do. I have to, because it rings so true for this point. Is he brought up multiple times how good Ohio State is defensively in short yardage situations.
Yep.
Very specifically. And so it ended up being that the thing Penn State does hang its hat on is the thing that Ohio State is
Right.
best against. And that's a problem. That's a problem for Penn State football,
Yeah.
when the thing that it wants to be and do is the thing that your opponent is so excellent at stopping.
It's so interesting because the conversation we had after Wednesday's practice, and I talked about this Thursday and Friday, is it seemed like he was being very intentional when I asked him about being a complete team and being, checking every box, and he said matchups dictate football. Yep. I assumed he meant positively. Because watching the film, like, Ohio State is good in those short yardage situations. They do have Ty Hamilton, a very good defensive tackle, but Penn State has good football players there as well. And it felt like a decision to not test themselves there. And I think that's just an interesting decision. One of the things, we're getting into some of the stuff we're going to be writing about this week at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I asked James Franklin about a specific stat. I wanted to get his opinion on it. I have mine, which you can read later. 11% of Drew Aller's passes have been targeted 10 yards down the field between the numbers. That is a shockingly low number compared to his peers and compared to historically in this offense. James Franklin talked about it. I was too busy keeping eye contact to fully digest all the things he said. I'm going to go back and read it. What was your interpretation of kind of his answer to that question?
He had two answers, right? One was the 53 and a third, right? Having to make defenses run across the field to defend you. They do that. That is something that Penn State does. And we talked about it earlier in the season about Drew Aller's ability to make passes that other guys can't. He can stretch the field in that way. And the second point that he mentioned again today that I thought he brought up on Saturday afternoon and has mentioned a few times this season is up over the top, right? And that does not exist. That does not exist in this offense. And so the one area that he said they do, debatable as to how well, I think, or there's at least a conversation there. And the second element doesn't exist at all. The third element that he didn't bring up is what you asked, right? Which is, hey, this does not exist in your offense. You do not have players catching, right? Whether it's the crossers, your tight end usage. I mean, all of those things that, look, I'm just handing it over to you. It's not necessarily an indication of a team-wide issue or a play calling issue as much as it is, look, your quarterback just isn't, it's not happening there. That's not something that he's doing right now.
Where is the, I don't want to say the breakdown, but where's the decision making to not put players in conflict over the middle? Is it coming from the head coach and the philosophy? Is it coming from the play caller and the plays called? And we're going to dig into all of this. Or is it the quarterback in his decision making process? Because it's not like if you flip on the film, they're completely, like, it's not like there's a force field over the numbers and they're just bouncing off and they're only allowed in these areas. They're running routes over the middle. So are those primary reads? Is that, how does all of that break down in this offense, and how does that cause other things to happen, which we have, again, documented in this Ohio State game in our film room, of why they were able to shut down Penn State's offense? And it's not just, you can't live on take what the defense gives you. Sometimes you do have to force the issue and make them defend the full field or make them afraid of other things. And we're going to dig into all of that. The last thing is something I know you had on your mind, which was his comments about the post-game, the rawness of the emotions, and kind of the fallout since. So what was your take on how he addressed that today?
Yeah, I think he alluded, and to a certain extent, Dom DeLuca did earlier on his call today, but just alluded to what actually happened, right? I'm able to get feedback in certain places, and it was raw. It was a fiery place to be after that, an uncomfortable place to be, put it that way.
Yeah.
As you would expect, and I think that was one of the things that James Franklin said today was if it wasn't that way, he would have been disappointed, right? You expect for something that you invest so much time, energy, effort into, when you come away with a disappointing result, you should be disappointed. You should be pretty fired up, but it's a balancing act, right? And this is the huge conversation that I don't feel like is being had, but needs to be had, which is, look, this is a program under James Franklin over the past 10 years that has let one game beat them twice.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Too many times, right? And against lesser quality opponents. I mean, it is the numbers are all there. You can look back in the record book; they're all there. How this team responds is going to be up to certainly how James Franklin handles this, how his coaching staff handles this, but also critically, it puts to test the conversation of the offseason, which was leadership. Mm-hmm. And leadership is such a strange, it's just out in the ether. There's no.
That's why I leave this to you, because I can't see it on field. I can see the result of it, but you can't measure this.
You cannot measure it, but it's a thing that, hey, look, times are going to get tough for every football team everywhere.
Yep.
In this specific situation, a 6-1 team who has had established success and has risen to top 10 in the country, still top 10 in the country, is right now having to grapple with the ultimate disappointment, right, of losing to a team that you felt like very strongly you had the opportunity to beat.
Yep.
Even playing as poorly as they did, that is still a game that was a 4-point differential for literally most of the game, 25 minutes,
Yep.
right? Where that was a game that they had in their sights, even if Ohio State was controlling it. And obviously they came away and just really did not put up any resistance to that. They just lost. So that is the dynamic this week, that you've got an Indiana team that they're playing that's just not having a good year, not a good team in any capacity. Penn State being able to win that game is going to demand a turnaround and a refocusing that, whether it's happened or not, I can't say. I don't know. But certainly it's something that they have to figure it out. They have to get over this last one very, very quickly and kind of move on from here.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I don't think they know yet, because practice doesn't happen until today, I believe. Yep. So they're going to find that out. We'll see it on Wednesday. Make sure you subscribe to Blue White Illustrated on YouTube so you see practice highlights, James Franklin's next press conference, and, of course, the BWI live show. We're going to be talking about previewing the game against Indiana, probably still talking about Penn State, Ohio State on Thursday, but all that coming up on the YouTube channel. And once again, subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com.